At what week of flower do you pollinate your females for best seed results? So I learned from Subcool around day 28 is what he had mentioned, and I've just been doing that. Really anywhere between day 20 to 35 is a rough range where people like to. Another thing that people say is pollinate the plant when it looks horny. When you see those pistils, stigmas, they're really bursting out from all directions. That's when you hit it with the pollination. So, but usually it's around day 28 is when I'm going in there and pollinating the female plants. And then of course I'm just letting that plant grow and grow and grow all the way up as far as I can, because really I'm not harvesting for the flower. So oftentimes I'm going past the harvest window so I can get more seed development out of it. There have been some plants where it just looks cannibalized towards the end there because I'm just pushing it to try to get more seeds out of it. And seeds will be dropping for sure. You know, when you push a plant that long that's been pollinated, seeds start dropping off of it. Evo diode. Man, I really like the Evo diode. I mean, it's Samsung's newest release, right, for diode. So the LM301H Evo diode, 3.14 micromoles per joule. So that's awesome. I know there's some companies that have included them in their fixtures. I did want to mention that Mars Hydro actually is including them now in their FC series. Big shout out to Mars Hydro. They're actually sponsoring this Q&A video. So the FC 3000 Evo, they've got the FC 8000, FC 1000W, FC 6500, and FC 4800. All have the Evo diodes from Samsung in there. And they're actually doing a sale right now, 14% off all of the items on their website. So actually use coupon code Mr. Grow It. If you use my coupon code Mr. Grow It, helps me, gives me some credit there. And this sale is running from the 14th to the 27th. So want to jump on it now and save some moolah. I'll have a link in the description section below. What do you do when you get clawing and toxicity in organic living soil grow? I think that's a really good question. What I normally do is just continue to water in. I don't do any type of flushing. I haven't been in a situation where I felt like I needed to flush an organic soil, right? Soil with just organic amendments in there. I've just been kind of doing watering and then letting the plant kind of work itself out of it. You know, if I need to keep a plant in the vegetation stage a little bit longer, then that's what I do before flipping the flower. But yeah, I have come across that where you get some little bit darker of leaves, shiny, clawing, clear sign of nitrogen toxicity. And yeah, I just continue to kind of just feed plain water only. And then eventually that plant kind of bounces out of it, right? It depletes the nutrients within the medium. The amendments have, broken down. Plants have uptaken those nutrients, and you start to see it kind of bounce back and be fine from there. So that's what I've done. I know there are other growers out there who they flush. They go right to flushing. They go ahead and run a ton of water through the medium in order to flush out and kind of start back from scratch. But I personally haven't done that. What are your thoughts on 1212 from C? Never heard much about it. Done it. So I've done it a couple different times. I've done it in a solo cup. And one thing to know about 1212 that I think a lot of people have misconceptions on is if you are planting a seed sprouts from the medium, right? Day one, it's getting 1212 light cycle. It's still going to spend some time in the vegetation stage. It's not going to go right to shooting out pistils and start flowering and have barely any growth, right? It's going to spend the first 20-ish days in the veg stage before you start seeing pistils. I believe it was 21 days is when I first started seeing pistils on a plant that I just gave 1212 right off the bat. So you get some veg period, then of course it starts to flower. So yeah, you can totally do that. Some people do that in order to save on energy consumption. Some people do that on the SOG technique, sea of green. So if they're just doing that one cola coming up, but a bunch of different plants, they'll just hit it with the 1212 right off the bat. It'll grow up, 8, 10, 12 inches. They'll just keep that one cola, and then it'll start flowering, and then they'll have a whole bunch of just single colas, SOG technique. So there's a couple different reasons for why you would potentially do it. I've just been sticking with the 18-6 for the veg and then 12-12 for flower, because I do like to have that control over the veg period. Let me veg the plants for as long as I want to, get the plant shaped the way I want to, then kind of flip it to flower. But yeah, 12-12, that is definitely a thing that people do for a couple different reasons. Can you please explain what power should be run at seed, veg, and flower, and the height? This is all dependent on what grow light you're using. So grow lights are all not created equal. There's some folks that have a grow light where they're dimming it down and they're getting it super close to their plants. Other folks are putting on a full blast, having the light all the way up at the top of the tent, and then just keeping on that setting the entire time and letting the plant kind of grow into it. A couple different ways you can go about it. Some people are going to say that, hey, if you're keeping it full blast all the time, especially with just seedlings, you're wasting energy. So some people prefer to kind of bring it down and then dim it down. But it's really impossible to give you a blanket answer on what power should be run at seed, veg, and flower cycle. A different way to go about it would be DLI. A lot of people go after in between 40 and 60 DLI. So if you're tracking DLI, that is said to be kind of one of the more accurate ways in determining how much light your plant should get on a daily basis. The other thing would be PAR. A lot of people look at the PPFD numbers. They have a PAR meter, and they'll look, if you do have a PAR meter, although they are very expensive, it can be useful. I have one. I'm looking at giving 200 to 400 PPFD in seedling or clones, even mother plants. I'm just going to keep them growing slow. 400 to 600 ppfd for plants in the vegetation stage, and then 600 to 900 ppfd in the flowering stage. If supplementing CO2, a lot of people going a little bit higher than that. So yeah, that's kind of the best answer I can give you for that question. It's really dependent on what grow light you're using, on what power you can put it at, what height you can put it at for the different stages of growth. This is my first harvest. I've dried some larf, and then some of it comes out smelling really good, and some of it smells like a plant. We're in 65 temp, 60 humidity. So my actual question is, when you hang dry, how long does it take for the plant to smell to go away? It'll take a little bit, right? Yeah, that fresh plant harvest smell that you get, certainly you can have that in the drying phase for sure. Once you get into curing, so once you've dried for in between 4 and 10 days, some people go longer than that. Actually, I'm planning a video talking about drying and curing with a bunch of studies that have been come out pretty recently here. But ideal drying time, according to latest studies, is anywhere between 4 and I think it's 12 days of drying. If you go longer, if you do an extended dry, microbe growth is a concern. But 65, 60 should be fine. And you'll see once you get into curing and you start burping those jars and having that off-gassing happen, within the matter of weeks, you'll see the true smell start to come out from there. I have taken cuts for the first time 14 days ago on Wednesday. I have some that have rooted, but others that have not. In your opinion, how long should I let the ones that have not rooted ride in the dome? And what should I do about the ones that don't take? Thanks. Good question. I am assuming that you're going straight into the medium. So maybe you're cutting a clone and putting directly into soil or directly into cocoa. I'm going to assume that's kind of what you're using, since you didn't mention any other type of method. I've been through that same exact thing, to where I've got cloned, put them into soil, and then they didn't take root. One of the things that for me I found is the actual temperature of the soil. So I made the mistake a long time ago of having it was winter time, number one, so a little bit harder to keep the root zone temperature up, but utilizing a heat mat. So I'm not sure if you're utilizing a heat mat or not, but that might be what is causing it not to root. Either that or a lack of oxygen in the root zone. Maybe the soil is too moist. It's just not getting that oxygen that it needs. Maybe drainage on the containers. I don't know if you're using like solo cups, for example. I used to just slice the solo cups. I wish I had a picture here to kind of show you, but just kind of slices versus taking out a big amount of the bottom of the solo cups. Drastic difference, now that there's better drainage, better air getting down in there. So those are the things that I would check out if I were you, because those are kind of the main reasons I've come across for things not rooting when cloning and just putting it directly into soil or cocoa. Have you tried curing in grove bags? Yes, I have. I put them in the grove bags, heat sealed them, and put them into a wine fridge. Okay, so that's what I used for curing. I actually put a little hygrometer in there. It did hold steady at the 62% is kind of what I was aiming for. It held steady there. Didn't have any mold, but I was just using it really for curing. I know some people are using it for drying as well, I think. I haven't used it for drying though. The problem with where I live is it's very hot here. Right now it's, in here it's about 78 degrees. Usually anywhere between 75, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not great for storage. And I spent many, many years just storing in room temperature. And 2 months later, bud's just bland. The flavor's depleted. it's volatilized. It's gone. So storage temperature has kind of been something that I've been more focusing on between the canitrol, using that for storage. That's good to get the temperature down. And also the wine fridge. Some people put it in refrigerators. I've had to put it in refrigerators as well. That's down to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So all those are things that I've tried kind of as storage temperature for curing / storage. But the grow bags worked pretty good. I don't have any complaints on them. Used them for a very short period of time. I will tell you that though. You just keep in the fridge. What temperature are you storing at on the regular? Usually about 60 degrees Fahrenheit is what I have my wine fridge set to. I had the canitrol set to it, and then I bumped up. I've been playing around with a little bit between 60 and 65. And to be honest with you, I haven't noticed a whole lot of difference between 60 and 65 as far as storage temperature. Fridge, yeah, like I mentioned, goes down to about 40 degrees. It actually varies between, for me, for the way I have my fridge set at, there's a dial where you can adjust it. But my range is between, I think, 34 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of what that range is. But yeah, sometimes when I'm drying in my canitrol, I got to put it elsewhere. Some of it fits in the wine fridge. Last resort is the actual regular fridge. Better than room temperature, that's for sure. Have you tried the bottled organic nutrients? Having some success with the bio-canna line? Yes, I have. I use Bloom yellow bottles. Oh, and by the way, in regards to answering questions about products, yeah, if people ask them, I will answer them. I know I released a Q&A video on my channel, and there was a lot of the questions had to do with products, and somebody in the comments section, it was a couple of people, I think, comment section like, hey, why are you just talking about products all the time? What is this, an infomercial? It's like, I'm just answering questions here. If you got questions about products, I'll answer them, so but this episode actually has been a lot of plant questions, so those people won't be as much of keyboard warriors this time around, I'm sure. But Bloom yellow bottles, yeah, I use them. That line I had some good results in, but there's just so many bottles in that line. That was just a major turnoff for me. It was just the amount of bottles there, and it's very expensive. Although it's a very concentrated line, so you don't have to use much, there's a lot of bottles, and it adds up very quickly. So yeah, I had pretty good luck with that. I haven't used any other bottled organic nutrients. What can I use for silica other than rice hulls and bottles? Good question. I mean, diatomaceous earth has some silica in there, but I don't know how many people use it as an amendment for silica. Stash Blend has got it, right? Shameless plug. Stash Blend's got some silica in there, so you could pick up a bag of Stash Blend, and then it's powdered form. So longer shelf life than liquid. Mix it up into water, and then soil drench, and yeah, and get silica that way. But yeah, rice hulls, kind of bottled forms, seem to be the most popular forms of silica. I'm trying to think of other amendments off the top of my head. Let me know in the comments. What am I missing? I'm missing something here. What kind of pots do you use? I've been using the 10-gallon fabric pots. I use the Living Soil fabric pots by Grassroots Fabric Pots. They actually have a discount code, Mr. Grow It, if you get anything off of them. But they're the fabric pots with the liner in the middle there. So Living Soil, when you're growing organically out in nature, the soil doesn't dry out from all angles like it does with the normal fabric pot, right? So they have the liner in their fabric pots, so it just really dries out from the top down. There is some fabric on the bottom part where you can get some drying out from the bottom there as well a little bit, but that actually adds aeration in there. So I've been using the 10-gallon pots from them, and I like them. Before that, I was using 7-gallon plastic. I mean, I've used so much over the years, 5-gallon, 3-gallon. But over the past 3-4 years-ish, pots have been getting bigger, and I've been growing organic. What is the best way to lower ppm when using GH? Well, you could just do a lower dosage. So when you're mixing up your nutrients in water, you can, instead of doing a full dose according to the feeding schedule, some people do a half dose, quarter dose, so on and so forth. If you've gotten to the point where you've actually added in the nutrients already, mixed them up, and then put the TDS tester in there to see the ppm or EC meter to see the EC, and realize it was too high, and you're like, oh no, I don't want this to be this strong. A lot of people just dilute. They'll just add in water, dilute that mix down to their desired EC or ppm before watering in. So not sure if you thought of that, but figured it was worth mentioning. You feel like you water more in fabric? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I mean, I'm just straight fabric pots, not talking about the Grassroots Living Soil pots that I mentioned earlier. For sure, it definitely dries out at all angles, and I'm watering more often. There's more aeration, So it's normal. And I live in a very dry climate. It's 35% RH here right now in this room. And so I'm always adding in humidity with the humidifier, for example. But yeah, definitely watering more in fabric. That's one of the reasons why I've opted, you've seen a lot of my videos over the recent years, it's using a lot of plastic, using plastic pots. I like to be able to wash them out and reuse them too. I mean, I know you can do that with the fabric. You can wash those out and reuse them and stuff, but plastic pots have been working fine for me. So I kind of haven't really been using fabric pots besides the living soil pots that I mentioned. Best way to lower ppm, week 3 of veg, run off at 1800. How's the plants look? Plants look okay? Just water for a while, water only for a little while until you get the ppm where you want it. But 1800 isn't too crazy. So people go upwards of 2000 ppm, assuming you're talking about the 500 scale TDS tester. When you talk about the ppm, that's more common. Unless you're in Europe, I know a lot of folks do the 700 scale. But just water, water for the future times the medium needs it. And then you'll see that it'll eventually lower down. Now, if your plants are struggling, that's a different story, right? A lot of people that plant, they'll flush, So I'm not sure if you're using synthetic, organic inputs, that would make a difference there as well.